Joseph Maestas. Peter Ives. Ron Trujillo. And Alan Weber. Thank you so much for attending, and moderators, take it away.
Thank you, Ray. Glenn, thank all of you. First of all, my name is Richard Eeds, and I'll be introduced us. I'm Richard Eeds. I do a radio show. I'll be asking the question there. Thank you. Along with Milan Simonich from the Santa Fe, New Mexico. The candidates were given the rules in advance. They all know the rules. We drew names, or we drew numbers prior to coming out. This is the order that they drew numbers in. We'll ask questions. I apologize that you cannot see the clock. You'll just have to trust us that we do have a clock here. We have a timekeeper over here. It'll be fair and it'll be accurate. We have asked the candidates in the rules and in previous emails to be specific, to actually get to an answer. And if Milan and I feel that that has not happened, they have not answered the question, either Milan or myself will have a follow-up question. I'll have 30 seconds to answer that. So thank you all for coming. Thank you all for coming. The enthusiasm which everybody's going to all of these different forums is really encouraging. That people want the information, they want to be engaged, and they want to be informed voters. Thank you to the candidates. I know you guys are doing a million of these. I know you're sick of each other. Just put up with it for another 2 hours, at least tonight. All right, so to ask the first question is my esteemed co-inquisitor, Milan Simonich from the Santa Fe, New Mexico. Oh, I'm sorry. You're absolutely right, Mr. Weber. 1 minute for each introduction for each candidate, and we'll begin now with Alan Weber.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for the opportunity to interview for the job of Mayor of Santa Fe, because that's what this is. It's a job interview, and you and your fellow voters are the hiring committee. And I'm here to present my qualifications and to ask for your vote on March 6th. For the first time, we're electing a strong mayor for the city of Santa Fe, a mayor who will actually run the city government. $400 million budget, 1,400 employees, and 70,000 customers, you, the people of Santa Fe. What do you want in your next mayor? You want someone who makes city government work for you, someone who has a vision for an inclusive city, and someone who will cherish the values that make Santa Fe special. I'm an entrepreneur. I've run and started my own company. I've signed both sides of a paycheck. I've worked in local, state, and federal government jobs, so I know how government works. And I love Santa Fe. My wife Frances and I moved here as soon as we could, even though we weren't born here. That's my job application. I'm asking for your support on March 6th to elect me, Alan Weber, as Santa Fe's first strong mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Trujillo.
Thank you for everyone. Not even here. I'll be better. Thank you to all the sponsors, and especially thank you to Lenzik, as I call it, the Carnegie Hall of the Southwest. I've had the honor to serve as a municipal leader for the last 12 years. I understand this government and its intricacies, and I have a deep working relationship with the staff. In the area of economic development, I'm prepared to task a new government in new areas. We must align and package our natural, cultural, and intellectual assets into compelling business opportunities. We must look at the broader digital world to see where Santa Fe can establish its own position. Our city government and private sector must collaborate to understand the emerging industries in this digital economy. Why couldn't we bring an online education company to the campus of the College of Art and Design? Why couldn't we invite Solar Energy Trade Associations to have its conventions here? There's so much that we can do together when the government truly serves the people. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ross.
Thank you, and good evening, and thanks, of course, to our sponsors and our moderators. My name is Peter Ives, and for me, this election is about leadership. And I run for mayor to lead and better and more quickly implement positive change across the city of Santa Fe. I have lived in Santa Fe for 34 years. I married Patricia Salazar, now Patricia Salazar Ives, who has deep ties to the northern New Mexico Hispanic community. I've been an active community participant within the city over those many years, and for the past 20 years, I've been an attorney with a group called the Trust for Public Land that brought you the Rail Yard Park. I have been a city councilor for 6 years and led in that time on critical issues to the city, including the environment, housing, and water conservation. I look forward to doing more of that and being able to be more actively your leader on all those issues. I ask for your vote on March 6th.
Mr. Maestas?
Good evening. Our town is at a crossroads, and in this first election of our new city government, we have a chance to claim the future we want for ourselves. We cannot keep electing politicians who refuse to modernize City Hall. These politicians, who are fine with business as usual, will kick the can even further down the road. As an engineer, I've spent more than 3 decades solving problems for the American people as a federal civil servant. As your city councilor, I have a strong record of success. And as your next mayor, I will work to expand affordable housing, spur economic development, and create opportunities for everyone. With a new, stronger mayor, experience matters. As an elected community leader for almost 14 years, I have worked hard to help people in Santa Fe and beyond. And I ask for your support and your vote on March the 6th. Thank you.
And Ms. Noble.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for coming and being a part of democracy. So I came back to Santa Fe. I decided to come back in 2006 when my grandmother was dying, and I really had this realization that I wanted to grow old in the place that I had so loved growing up. I also had a professional moment where, after all this time I'd spent at BBC World News covering business and economics, I thought, you know, I can take this knowledge and apply it in the place I know and love best and improve the economy in my hometown in Santa Fe. And so I came back and I got a job at the city of Santa Fe in economic and community development, and I worked there for more than 9 years, and now I'm running for mayor. And here's what I know. This exercise we're engaged in, it's a we thing. It's about this community. It's about unlocking the power of Santa Fe, of the city employees, and making sure we are all safe, secure, and supported in this community that we call home. I ask for your vote on March 6th.
Thank you all. Milan Simonich.
Simonich, actually, but
Thank you.
these questions go across the board to all the candidates, so good luck. First question. The state auditor found that the previous mayor's administration misspent $2 million of a bond issue for parks and trails. Some of that money that was supposed to go into brick and mortar projects went for salaries, people working on golf courses and other places. The current administration of the mayor said that all the money had been spent properly, every penny. This weakened confidence in city government. So, what specifically would you do to restore trust in the city administration?
How do you want us to do this?
You're first. We'll same question for all 5 candidates, starting with you, Mr. Webb.
Thank you. Well, I think this speaks to the heart of the next mayor's job, which is the task of restoring trust between the citizens, the people who live in Santa Fe, and the city government that is supposed to serve them. And I think it begins with this campaign, frankly, with how each of us is reaching out to people across the city and recognizing that we have to be one Santa Fe, and we have to be a Santa Fe that is united and that works together. That's why in my campaign I'm pitching what I call a big tent. It's why my campaign's website is in English and in Spanish. The real problem you're referring to is, I think, a failure to plan ahead, and it's really at the heart of the next mayor's job. The reason that that audit was done, and it uncovered the use of public funds in ways that the public had not expected to see them used, was that there was no fiscal planning for the recession. And when the recession hit, Santa Fe's government was unprepared for it. My background as a manager and a financial analyst, somebody who understands how to read a balance sheet, tells me that the new mayor, the next mayor, has to do a contingency plan right off the bat. We need to be prepared for the next recession so we're not caught unprepared when and if the city has another fiscal crisis. So as mayor, I would immediately appoint a group of citizens to look hard at our budget and our rainy day fund planning and to come up with an approach that will make sure that we never again take money that's been allocated for one purpose and apply it to a second purpose for which it was never intended. If you break trust with people, if you take their money and use it in unintended ways, you have to earn it back by demonstrating that you heard what they said and you'll never do it again.
Thank you, Mr. Trivia.
Thank you. That's been one of the biggest questions facing this city is trust. The people here in Santa Fe, they don't trust the city government. They don't. The reason they don't trust city government is because you know what's been happening over the past few years? City government has been telling the residents what they can and what they can't do. They're telling you what you can drink. They're telling you what you can't drink. They're telling you where you can go, telling you where you can't go. That is not the job of city government. City government is here to serve the community, to work collaborative with the community, to ask the community, what do you need of city government to make your life better? That's what it comes down to, is quality of life. With issues facing the city, dealing with the parks fund, yes, I admit, I was there, I've been there, everybody knows. I can speak for my district, in District 4, the parks fund. Money was spent right, because I was on top of it every day with that issue, because parks are still important to me. I said, what's going on in city government right now is government is broken. The city government is broken, but that starts from leadership. Leadership all the way down. So what the next new mayor full-time has to do is restructure that government. He is the leader. Buck stops with him. So that leader has got to make sure that he puts the right people into the right positions to make those right decisions that affect you the taxpayers. When it comes to time about being responsive and being transparent, I can guarantee you in a Trujillo administration, there will be quarterly audits. They will be online. The people here in Santa Fe will know where their money is going. They will know where it was spent, how it was spent. Remember, it's your money. The city government makes to ensure you, the people, that your money is being spent right and being spent properly so that it benefits you, the people.
Mr. Ives?
Thank you. I was not on council when the 2008 bond was passed or when there were modifications made to allow the funding from that bond measure to be used in other ways. I can say that I was on council when all these problems arose, and I can report that we did not sit idle at City Hall in the face of these issues, but rather acted decisively to try and address them, and especially to try and ensure that they would never occur again. So, shortly after all of this was disclosed, I had sponsored a resolution indicating or asking that there had to be some sort of resolution passed if we were ever going to change the purposing of bond proceeds in the future. Subsequently, I believe it was Councilor Dominguez introduced a measure to do that by ordinance. So now, as a matter of city ordinance, we cannot change the purpose of the funds that are raised by bonds without an ordinance change actually being implemented. Additionally, when I came on council, I began advocating for upgrades to our information technology systems, which were woefully inadequate. We are currently implementing a new IT system citywide, and as part of that, we have already adopted a new timekeeping system called Chronos that will prevent what happened in the 2008 bond election from ever happening again, because people will be required to keep track of their time to projects, and so we have done the steps necessary to make sure that those problems don't happen. Third, I have advocated for several years for a forensic auditor, so we have that capacity on city staff to make sure we are using our funds appropriately.
Thank you, Mr. Meisner.
Thank you. When the 2008 Parks Bond issue came to light, a cursory audit was done. It was a sampling of financial records, and there were red flags. And I think that's when the issue was minimized in terms of what we should do next. And as your Santa Fe City Councilor, I was the only councilor that proposed legislation that ended up being passed unanimously, calling for a comprehensive independent audit of the 2008 Parks Bond. It's what the Santa Fe New Mexican call the boldest proposal made. That evening we had a discussion among the governing body. And I think the administration of that Parks Bond, I think, was symptomatic of the consequences of the recession and led to many poor financial practices engaged by the city. And over the course of the last 4 years, I have been the watchdog, really calling out these financial practices that really were employed almost at all costs to avoid furloughs and layoffs, taking money from public transit, taking money from the $3 stormwater fee that's in your water bill and using that for parks and streets labor. And so we've made a lot of changes, but much more needs to be done. And so as your next mayor, I will restore trust in government by ensuring that we have good government, a government that is accountable, is efficient, and transparent. Because I think all of you expect government services to be delivered reliably, consistently, and on time, because the best city government is the one that just works. And with my administration, you're not going to get any drama. It's going to be a basic expectation of all of you that your government works for you and is reliable and trustworthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Noble.
So anyone who has worked for the city recently or in decades past would not be surprised to find that the city's relied on informal practices, and I commend Councillor Ives for what he mentioned and his leadership in really pushing for updated IT systems. But to say that there was no fiscal planning in going into the recession is absolutely inaccurate. And the fact is there was a budget restructuring team, which I had the honor of facilitating, and we worked in thinking through city services as a bullseye, what's in the center, what's the circles outside, with the idea that you cut like a pie slice, so that your central service is cut the least, and whatever is on the outside of the circle takes a deeper cut. And these were bridging strategies to help Santa Fe weather the recession, which by all objective measures we did pretty well, partly because we did want to keep people employed and make sure that we didn't see a destructive spiral in our economy when people lost their jobs and stopped spending and that sort of thing. Another thing I can say is that during the Parks Fund audit and when there was a management response to it, I went into the Public Work Director's office and he was going through a spreadsheet. And I said, what's that? And he said, well, you know, I'm looking through all of the parks projects that we were supposed to do, and we were supposed to do something like 270, and we've done more than 300, partly because we were actually able to save money by keeping people employed and doing project management in-house rather than contracting out. And I also want to commend Councilor Trujillo for his leadership and advocacy for parks, because here's the thing, we absolutely need to restore trust, to shine the light on city systems, to have good financial controls, to do so in the first city budget, which needs to be passed by the end of May. But let's not forget that what this is all for is the parks, and so that we have great parks in Santa Fe. And I have a kid, we play in them, we have a lot of upgrades, and I'm really grateful for that Parks Fund.
I want to